I got to start real quick before I get to Nebraska basketball tonight. The hack tournament and Mr. Houston, who used to play in our organization forever. I've seen him since he was knee high to a grasshopper. If you had to, if you had to stop the season today, are you taking Northeast or North Star, or neither?
I'm taking Northeast right now.
Okay.
Recent body of work, really impressive. Houston, as you mentioned, that guy is a bucket.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean,
Oh yeah, and he
if
enjoys
I'm that
giving it
coach,
to you too. He's competitive.
without question. Man, he could score so many different at so many different levels too. His mid-range game
Yep.
is really, really good. It's underrated. But he can shoot the three. He can take it to the rim. He plays with a ton of confidence. Uh, I just what they did is in the hack and then leading up to the hack. That's my team right now. The city's been wild here in Lincoln
It
this
is.
year. If you remove the hack tournament, it essentially is going to come down to a three-way tie between Lincoln Southeast, Lincoln North Star, and Lincoln Northeast. But I think the unspoken city champion is Northeast because they won the conference tournament. That's a huge conference. It's at a pretty high level this year, and I've been very impressed with what Lazarick Houston and his supporting cast. It's not just him either. They had
Correct.
one of his teammates, Tennifer, hit 8 threes in a game in that tournament. So
Mm.
they're playing at a really high clip right now.
Kevin, as we switch over to Nebraska basketball, obviously on the road tonight, but they got a big one in Lincoln last week against Illinois. Seems like they've righted the ship a little bit. DB was asking this earlier, but why does every game feel like a must-win now? Is it just because it is, or are we being a little dramatic?
Well, we were not being dramatic a week ago because it was really the season was at a crossroads, and you had a huge opportunity to get everything pointed back in the right direction because you had the opponents on the schedule you did. You had a ranked Illinois team and then a ranked Oregon team, which Oregon no longer ranked, and Illinois slipped way down. But the bottom line is Nebraska got those 2 wins. It's harder to steer the ship back in the correct direction if you're playing teams at the bottom of the Big Ten. So that's why those 2 games last week were so uber important for Fred Hoiberg and his team. And now you look at what's left ahead. Nebraska's got a little wind back in the sails. And of the 9 games, I believe all but 2 are against teams with a losing record in the conference. So there is plenty of potential. And with the momentum Nebraska has right now, given what happened last week, that's why we feel like this game is a pretty big one because you don't want to just go stub your toe after you just had the week you did.
So, Kevin, let me ask you something because you've watched this a long time, and we talk about dramatic versus not dramatic. It seems like every 3 weeks, it's like, well, there's this indictment of Coach Hoiberg. He's, when it was 12-2, he was this, and we go back to the 2023 record and the 71 win percentage, and then the struggles after that. It's like, man, are we sure this guy can coach? Like, I get part of that is fandom, but I think Nebraska basketball fans are different just because they're probably the most committed without tangible results. When should we just move on and think, you know what, in Coach Hoiberg, I think I trust?
I think it should happen now.
Yeah,
And,
it
I kind of
feels like that.
I personally get pretty tired of the conversation. The referendum on Fred Hoiberg after a couple of bad losses or after a 6-game losing streak, like the man just took you to the NCAA tournament last year, which doesn't happen every year. And this team has NCAA tournament potential. I think that's where everybody gets caught up so much in the moment and you kind of lose perspective. It's because some of the things that were said before this season that the goal was to not only make it back to the tournament, but win a tournament game for the first time in program history. So that expectation was set. But what's he supposed to say? Yeah, we're going to try to match what we did last year. Well, that wouldn't satisfy anybody. So you kind of get caught up in this mental complex of like how to evaluate Coach Hoiberg and this team. It's almost like Will Bolt. Every year he wants to win or wants to host a regional. What's he supposed to just say we want to make the regional? Well, that would be just matching what you did a year ago. These coaches want to always take it the next step and improve and go a little bit farther. So I don't know if that plays into the psyche of the fans with this situation, but I mean, what do you want, Fred? You want Barry Collier coaching this team again? Like I'm not trying to shame Barry Collier, but you have Fred Hoiberg as a coach, who is a good coach. The biggest challenge with Fred is just trying to make sure that he's getting his guys to maximize their talents and the game plan every single time out. And that's what was maybe missing in the 6-game slump. But it seems like if this team has confidence, and guys, I really believe for this squad, they just have to play from ahead. When they get behind and they're trailing by 6, 8, then if it gets double digits, I just feel like the psyche and the confidence teeters with this team. But when they're in the lead and they have a little bit of a groove and a little bit of swagger, that's when they're the most dangerous. And that starts and ends with Juwan, Gary, and Brice Williams. I think those guys, when they are confident and they're rolling, they're really good.
Okay. All right, let's stay with Brice and Juwan right there. Put these in level of importance for me. Rank these 3. Shot selection, defending the 3, taking care of the basketball. If Nebraska is going to play well, put those 3 things in order for me as you watch this particular team.
I'm going to say take care of the basketball is number 1 because turnovers win ball games, and no matter what sport you have, and you can't give possessions away. Then I'm going to say defend the 3 because when Nebraska gives up the 3, and some of these teams get on heaters against the Huskers, and I don't know why that's always against Nebraska, but that is just that's where the confidence wavers. When you see a
Rutgers,
team,
I'm looking at you.
And Iowa too, late in that game, Iowa just got silly from beyond the arc. Just stem that tide. Don't let teams get on huge runs. And I think the huge opponent runs kind of correlate pretty strongly with being able to shoot the 3 against Nebraska. And then I'm going to say shot selection the 3rd, because even if you get off a poor shot, there is a chance Nebraska rebounds it well enough that you could potentially get a putback.
Yeah, the reason shot selection came up was twofold, so I may have put it higher. Does this make sense? Number 1, sometimes when they struggle with transition defense, it usually stems from a bad shot. The other one is if they're efficient with their shot selection, they look like a much better scoring team when we're not just shooting like ill-advised 3s.
Yeah.
You're not buying it. I get it.
No. I don't know that I fully subscribe to all of that.
He said,
too.
yeah.
I get your point, but I don't know that I totally agree with that.
Okay.
point.
Okay. Sure.
I just think there's like I'd even go a little bit further and just say half court sets. Like getting good looks in half court sets are really important for this team.
Yeah.
When they're not running anything, I feel like they're just a little bit disjointed, and that's when things get a little bit wonky for the team. So getting back on defensive transition, who does that at a really good rate? Like some teams don't, and they still win. It's okay. I really say, like, going back to your question, DB, I take care of the basketball, defend the 3, and then, if you get good shots, you get good shots. But I think that this team rebounds the ball well enough. And I'll throw the Illinois game out the window because Illinois is it's one of the best rebounding teams in the country. And I think some people still feel bad about the way that they gave us. Nebraska gave up, I don't know how many offensive rebounds. Are ridiculous. But that's a credit to Illinois, not an indictment on Nebraska.
That's Kevin Sjuts, 10-11 News in Lincoln. Kevin, we appreciate it as always. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Kev.
See you, boys.